Okay, so our topic uh, for this lecture is Introduction to Environmental Health. And the uh, lecture outlines of this study are these. By the end of the lecture, you should be able to know that what is environmental health, what are the common environmental problems, and what are the roles of national agencies in environmental safety. So, environmental health is the relationship between people and their environment to promote health and well-being. What is environment? Basically, environment is everything which is external to a living being, and it employs all the external factors, living and non-living, which surrounds man. It can be divided into three components, which are physical environment, biological environment, and social environment. Physical environment includes water, soil, housing, and radiation. The biological environment includes plant and animal life, includes bacteria, viruses, insects, and animals. The social environments are the customs, culture, habits, income, occupation, religion. So the environmental health, as I told you earlier, the physical it can be divided into physical, biological, and social health. Physical health can include water, air, ventilation, noise, radiation, meteorological, housing, waste disposal, excreta disposal. Okay, so before we proceed, we should know certain terminologies. For example, sanitation, which is very important in environmental health. Basically, normally, when sanitation comes in our mind, it is automatically we think of sewerage or stuff related to sewerage. But sanitation is beyond sewerage and beyond our limited knowledge. It is the science of safeguarding health. And two important changes are needed to achieve health for all, which are concerned with a healthy environment and healthy living style. And it requires initiative by individuals, family, and community. So the WHO World Health Organization defines it as control of all those factors in man's physical environment, which exercise or deleterious effects on his physical development, health, and survival. So all those factors in physical environment which have an effect, which have certain consequences for physical development, health and survival, is defined as sanitation. So high death rate, infant mortality, sickness, and poor health is due to defective environmental sanitation. So talking about physical environment, the most important factor that is responsible for the highest number of diseases anywhere in the world, especially in developing countries, is the water. Much of the ill health in developing world is due to poor environmental sanitation, that is unsafe water, polluted soil, unhygienic disposal of human excreta, poor housing, insects, and rodents. The purpose of environmental health is to create, okay, what is the purpose of environmental health? It is there to create and maintain ecological conditions that will promote health and prevent disease. For example, safe drinking water and sanitation. So this is the condition of water that you can see, and this is not very uncommon in our city and in our region. You can see there is a river that has been polluted by the all sorts of waste, industrial waste, man-made waste, and in the third picture you can see that the roadside stalls, food stalls are using water to wash the utensils without disposing it off, and they are using the same water for washing their dishes over and over, and it is a recipe for disaster for transmitting fecal oral diseases like cholera. So the common environmental problems that are caused by water include most important is water. So there can be no state of positive health and well-being without safe water. Water for human consumption should be safe and wholesome. It should be free from pathogenic agents. It should be free from harmful chemical substances. It should be free from color, odor. It should be usable for domestic purpose, and it should not be contaminated or polluted. And when it does not meet the criteria above, it gets classified as contaminated water. So the water requirements are uh, for human are 3 liters per day, and it is important for domestic, public, agricultural, production, agricultural uses power production carrying away waste. So domestically, we need water for our human body, uh, for hydrating ourselves. Publicly, it is important. It is used in number of industries. Agriculturally, it is important to sustain our food security. And of course, hydropower also implies water. So the quantity must be sufficient and quality must be acceptable. So the sources of water supply include rain, which is a very important source of water supply. A number of regions are critically dependent on rain for especially for agricultural and consumption purposes, for example, the subcontinent. Then we have surface water, which include impounding reservoirs, rivers and streams, tanks, ponds, and lakes. The reservoirs are artificially created for supplying water to humans, and then there are rivers and streams. Groundwater include wells. Wells can be dug wells and tube wells. Dug wells are shallow and deep, and the tube wells are also shallow and deep. And then their third type is artesian well and springs. So what are the sources of water pollution? There are a number of sources, which can be domestic sewage, agricultural sources, for example, different sorts of fertilizers and urea, which contains dangerous chemicals. And then there are industrial sources, and then there is urbanization. So what is urbanization? Urbanization is increased migration from rural to urban areas for a number of reasons. So that hampers the normal urban structure of a given place that is designed for only a limited number of people. So the capacity to adjust according to the increasing needs of population is met by unhygienic water resources and unhygienic waste disposal. And then there are mining resources which also contributes to water pollution. The water-related diseases are diseases which are caused by water consumption or water contact. The health may be affected by ingestion of contaminated water either directly or through foods and by use of contaminated water for personal hygiene. It can be classified into biological and chemical. The biological include the biological diseases also called waterborne diseases are caused by presence of infective agents and due to presence of infected hosts. The viral include viral hepatitis A, hepatitis E, poliomyelitis, rotavirus, diarrhea. So out of these hepatitis E is extremely dangerous for pregnant women because it causes acute liver failure and is responsible for mortality in pregnant women. The viral hepatitis A is causes jaundice and normally it does not need hospitalization and it resolves on its own. Then poliomyelitis is also due to sewerage water and the virus is commonly isolated from sewerage water. And then there is rotavirus, which causes diarrhea in infants. Then there are bacterial diseases which are caused by water, which includes typhoid and paratyphoid fever. This causes gastrointestinal disturbances, causes constipation, diarrhea, fever, and fatigue, and basically severe toxic outlook of a patient. Then there is bacillary dysentery. Dysentery is basically when there is blood in the stool. Then there is cholera, uh, which is responsible for diarrhea, which causes dehydration, and cholera causes rice water diarrhea in a person. So the person who has cholera, if not treated, expires within 1 to 2 days. Then there is E. coli diarrhea, which also causes diarrhea and dysentery in a person. Then there are protozoal diseases which include amoebiasis and giardiasis, which causes liver diseases and gastrointestinal diseases. Then there are helminthic diseases, which are roundworm, threadworm, hydrated diseases. These diseases are also responsible for a number of pathologies in human. For example, anemia is also commonly caused due to these helminthic organisms, and the hydrated disease colonizes the liver of a person, and it is responsible for formation of hydrated cyst in liver. Then there is disease which is schistosomiasis, which is commonly found in snails which inhabits the freshwater resources, and it causes schistosomiasis, which causes a certain skin pathologies and other pathologies. Then there are fish worms and guinea worms. The chemical the chemical which are found in water which causes harmful effects for body can be classified into inorganic and organic constituents. Inorganic constituents can be arsenic, cadmium, chromium, cyanide, fluoride, lead, mercury, nitrite, and selenium. The organic includes polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbon and pesticides. So due to increased use of pesticides, which contains all sorts of harmful chemicals, there has been ban on the use of pesticides in the Western world, in European Union uh, and in US and in certain developed countries like Japan. And these countries also have banned the import of certain agricultural products from countries which uses the harmful pesticides. For example, a number of agricultural imports from India were blocked due to high use of pesticides there. So what are the human health impacts that are caused by poor sanitation or the poor environmental? The poor quality of water is responsible for a number of diseases in humans. The presence of toxic chemicals in bacteria in drinking water causes adverse effects. Due to the fecal contamination, in which there are the feces get contaminated in the water that is consumed. The people are suffer from waterborne diseases. These waterborne diseases that are caused by fecal oral contamination includes typhoid, cholera, hepatitis A, etc. And it is difficult to properly quantify in Pakistan due to underreporting and poor record maintenance in hospitals. The poor quality of water has been a source of concern for our water and sanitation agencies. And due to the lack of enough water for our population, the whole focus has been to improve the water quantity and there is inadequate focus on how to improve the water quality. In Pakistan, 30% or 40% of all deaths are due to poor water quality. For example, diarrhea is a waterborne disease. It causes severe dehydration in infants and children, so it is the leading cause of death. While every fifth citizen suffers from illness which is caused by polluted water. The main reason for waterborne diseases are addition of the sewerage, municipal sewerage and industrial wastewater at different points of water distribution. Because there is no control of how the mechanism on that how water should be discharged in our in the rivers. For example, the industrial water is discharged in the Liari River at different resources without properly treating it, without making it less harmful. So this has consequences for human health. In Pakistan, waterborne diseases are typhoid, giardiasis, intestinal wounds, diarrhea, cryptosporidium infection, and gastroenteritis. The infant deaths are caused by water-related diarrhea 60% in Pakistan, according to International Union on Conservation of Nature, which is highest ratio in Asia. The next physical component is air. Air is immediate environment of man, which comprises of air. It comprises of basically it is a component on which human life is dependent. For example, oxygen is vital for oxidation of our ATP in cells of the body. But the pollution of air by dust, smoke, toxic gases, and chemical vapors result in sickness and death. The effects are immediate and delayed. The delayed effects include chronic bronchitis, lung cancer, asthma, and emphysema. So there is an increased incidence of these diseases that are reported due to polluted air, especially in countries with high air pollution like Pakistan, India. The lead poisoning, which is due to combustion of fuel, it leads to harmful development of the nervous system of child and results in impaired neuropsychological development. Also, the harmful air damages the respiratory system. It has been observed that reduction in pollution can prevent 5% of all infections and chronic respiratory diseases, and it could avoid 0.6% of global burden of disease. The current guidelines state that annual average concentration of particulate matter should not exceed 5 microgram per meter cube, while 24-hour average should not exceed 15 microgram per meter cube, more than 3 to 4 days per year. But this is a chart you can see that the ratio is dangerously high, especially in Pakistan and India and China. You can see Lahore is being the most polluted city for the last few years, then Delhi and then Beijing. So it is no wonder that there is a high number of cases that are reported in this region. Then there are occupational lung diseases that are due to polluted air. These are conditions of respiratory system caused by workplace exposure to hazardous chemicals and dust. Hazards that can cause occupational lung disease include airborne inorganic lead, carcinogens, bushfire smoke, coal dust, asbestos, aluminum, air pollution, microorganism, talc dust, dust of hot metals, wood dust, hazardous chemicals, gases, and fuels. So this is the Bhopal tragedy. It was a tragedy that happened in 1984, and in this tragedy, a very dangerous gas called methyl isocyanate leaked from Union Carbide pesticide plant. So the disaster was triggered by water flowing into a tank with 42 tons of methyl isocyanate, and 55,000 people were exposed to this. Sorry, 5,58,000 people were exposed. So 8,000 people died within 2 weeks, and another 8,000 since then. And the impact was huge, hugely felt in the population. Then there is another important component, which is light. So the biological effects of light include effects on biological rhythms of body, temperature, physical activity, stimulation of melanin synthesis, which is a component of our skin responsible for protecting our skin. The activation of precursors of vitamin D, adrenocortical secretion, and food consumption. Too much ultraviolet radiation from sun can damage DNA in our skin cells and cause skin cancer. Noise is basically unwanted sound. The sources of this is another component. The sources of noise include automobiles, factories, industries, aircraft, use of horns, loudspeaker, TV sets. So the two important components of sound include loudness and frequency. So this is the loudness. The maximum recommended is 85 decibels, above which, if we are exposed, can cause air damage. So this is the chart which shows the different loudness levels, which are measured in decibels. Noise pollution. This is the sonic booms, which generate enormous amount of sound, which to the human ear can resemble an explosion. So the loudness is measured in decibel. Recommended maximum is 85 decibel. Normal conversation produces almost 60 decibel. It depends upon amplitude of vibrations. Then there is frequency. It is denoted in hertz. Humans can detect from 20 to 20,000 hertz. Below 20 hertz is infra-audible, and above 20,000 is ultrasonic. The effects of noise exposure. Deafness is a common effect of noise exposure. The victim is unaware in early stages. Temporary result from a specific exposure disappears after 24 hours. Frequency ranges from 4,000 to 6,000 hertz. The repeated continuous exposure around 100 decibels may result in permanent hearing loss, and it causes destruction of organs of corti which are present in area. Then non-auditory effects include physiological changes, including rise in blood pressure, rise in intracranial pressure, rise in heartbeat, breathing, nausea. The fatigue interferes with sleep, also reported to cause visual disturbances. The workmen exposed to higher noise intensity are often irritated, short-tempered, impatient, more likely to resort to agitation and disrupt production. Then there is radiation. The high doses tend to kill cells and causing organ damage, causing whole body response called acute radiation syndrome. Radiations damage the DNA in our cells. Exposure to low doses of radiation over a long period of time can have chronic effects. Okay, so it is measured in radon. This is a comprehensive slide which shows that how much radiation causes what effects in body. So less than 5 radons, there is no immediate observable effect. 5 to 50 radons, slight blood changes are there by medical evaluation. 50 to 150 radons, slight blood changes will be noted, and symptoms of nausea, fatigue, and vomiting will be reported. 150 to 1100 radons, severe blood changes and symptoms immediately. Approximately 2 weeks later, up to one half export would die. At 300 to 500 radons, one half will die with intensive medical care. And at lower end, isolations, antibiotic transfusion may provide some support, or bone marrow to produce RBC. At upper range, blood marrow transplant is needed. 1100 to 2000 grams possibility of death, 100% within 2 weeks. Once gastrointestinal system ceases working, medical care for comfort only. 2000 radons death at certainty at above 5000 radons. Central nervous system can no longer control body function, including breathing and blood circulation. So this is a picture which shows that how human radiation damages the human body. Then this is also a picture which shows that uh, how radiation, how much the effective radiation dose, what is the effective radiation dose, and how exceeding that can damage body. Then there is heat. Heat is another important physical factor. The temperature of air varies in different parts of day and in different seasons. Factors including it are place, altitude of the place, direction of the wind, and proximity to the sea. Heat stress, burden of heat that must be dissipated if the body is to remain in thermal equilibrium. Amount of heat gained by the body must be equal by the amount of heat lost by it. Heat stroke is defined as failure of heat regulating mechanism, characterized by high body temperature which may rise to 43.3 degrees centigrade. Profound disturbances include delirium, which is uh, inability to think consciously, the loss of consciousness, and convulsions, and for partial or complete loss of consciousness. The skin is dry or hot. The sweating is absent or diminished, outcome is fatal. Treatment consists of cooling the body in ice water till the required temperature falls below 38.9 degrees. So the heat stroke can be differentiated from heat exhaustion by the absence of absence of sweating in heat stroke, whereas sweating is present in heat exhaustion. So in heat exhaustion, milder illness compared to heat stroke, primarily caused by imbalance or inadequate replacement of water and salts in thermal stress. Or the body temperature is normal or mildly exceeded. The symptoms are primarily dizziness, weakness, and fatigue. And it are those caused by circulatory stress. Treatment is directed towards normalizing fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Heat stress and syncope is reported. So this is news from our country, from our city, which was reported back in 20. It was reported back in 2018, in which a number of people died due to high temperature. So cold. At temperature below freezing, frostbite occurs in which the tissues freeze and ice crystals form in between the cells. These are common at high altitudes, and the affected part should be warmed using water at 44 degrees centigrade. There are a number of cold injuries, which include frostbites and trench foots. These are caused by extreme cold. So the frostbite is exposure to freezing temperature, which results in ice crystals which destroy cells. Repeated cycles of vasoconstriction and vasodilation drive the thrombotic inflammatory response, leading to dermal ischemia and tissue damage. So in frostbite, the tissue is permanently damaged due to vasoconstriction and vasodilation, and there are thrombotic inflammatory change responses. So their amputation has to be done to prevent the further infection. So this is a very debilitating condition and psychologically also very stressful. In trench foot, there are prolonged exposure to wet and cold conditions above freezing, which results in ischemia and neurological damage. So there are a number of conditions associated with transport. It can be infection, venous hypertension, lymphedema, physical trauma, and dietary inadequacy and fatigue. Then we move on to housing, uh, which is another important factor. The housing can be classified into our it can be classified into an environmental factor. The housing consists of four basically components: the physical structure, design characteristics, social and psychological aspects of the house. For example, if there is an if there is a broken family or if there is abuse to a person, then the health of the psychological and mental health of the person will be affected, and the person will have difficulty in normal neurocognitive development. Then there's the neighborhood, the immediate physical area surrounding the house and home. If there it is densely populated, or if there's a low social economic area, there are no proper sewerage or services, no safe water provision, then the incidence of water-related diseases would be higher. Then there is community, which is the social characteristic and range of important services in the neighborhood. So the uh, 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 the environmental factor also includes the social factors also include the respiratory infection which are caused due to which are caused due to contagious diseases. For example, common cold, tuberculosis, influenza, diphtheria, measles, common cough. These are all diseases that are transmitted by respiratory air droplets. For example, if someone is a contagious household, then the possibility of getting these diseases would be very high. Then there are skin infections, for example, scabies, ringworm, impetigo leprosy. Again, these are diseases that are transmitted from one person to another due to in high contact, and these are common in highly densely populated regions. Then rat infestation, arthropods. These diseases, accidents, morbidity, and mortality. These diseases are related to the the social factors. Then there are certain agencies that are responsible in ensuring our environmental safety. But these includes Kyoto Protocol. So the Kyoto and Paris Agreement. So the Kyoto Protocol was created in 1997 and ratified in 2005. It was a binding agreement to decrease greenhouse gases, which trap increased sunlight in our Earth, and it increased the temperature of our Earth, thus resulting in global warming. So the Kyoto Protocol resulted in agreement to ensure that there is adequate and sustainable globalization and urbanization, so that the emission of greenhouse gases is restricted, so that there is some sort of check on global warming. Then there was Paris Agreement, which was also an agreement to reduce emissions and increase accountability. The limit was to limit global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level, and all nations were asked to reduce the emission, and targets were declared. Then there was Montreal Protocol, which was global agreement aimed to protect the ozone layer by phasing out the production of various ozone depleting substances. So a number of substances, gases which are used in our air condition and refrigerators are responsible for destroying our ozone layer. The destruction of ozone layer results in exposure to ultraviolet light, which causes skin cancer in our body. So it came into force in 1989, and to date, more than 197 countries have signed, and it has been quite successful. And it is speculated that by 2047, the ozone layer would be completely regenerated.